my ambition party, and it's a birthday edition. Michelle's like, what?
Nice.
Like, yes, yes. I have all these ideas about raves that we can, organize as parents because we're not going to an actual rave.
True, true. Yeah, not possible these days.
Exactly. We can put a really quick joke actually. A few months ago, my sister was babysitting the kids, and I remember she said, she's found this. Oh, I think, and I messaged her. The kids okay? She said, yeah, I found this version of Old McDonald's at a farm, and it's got like a really uns beat. So she's like, oh, it's so good. It's like you can have a rave. I was like, oh, never mind. Anyway, that's where my brain goes. Welcome to my ambition, Mishali.
Thanks so much for having me, Tiffany.
No
Pleasure.
problem, no problem. I know it's birthday week as well, so shout out to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, yeah, birthday week this week. So it was lovely to, yeah, when you were free on this date, it was really nice to put this in the diary and do something for myself, which is always what we're striving to do as working moms, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we did record, guys, don't worry, we've already spoke about the weather, which is very British, and also the northeast weather, which is even more British and even more northeast. We spoke about how friendly it is in the northeast, but also how cold it is in the northeast.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think the friendliness outweighs the weather. That's why we're still here.
Yes, this is it, isn't it? Actually, that is funny because you also are someone who moved up from south to north, didn't you? Like me.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I got married in 2014 and then we moved up because my husband's role was up here and we thought, why not? We'll try it for a couple of years and about 12 years later we're still here. So
Oh,
that says a
wow.
lot about the friendliness of the city for sure. Really, really nice place.
Love it. So yeah, if any Northeast companies are listening and you want to sponsor us, get in touch, honey boo boo.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a quick intro about Mashali. So I knew Mashali spent, was it 10 years in the Big Four?
10 years in the Big Four and 15 in corporate in general. Yeah.
Amazing. And you did actual or just a bit of words. You say it. I won't say
Actuarial.
it.
Yeah. So I'm a qualified actuary. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And now you run your own business, you're a coach, mentor, and speaker.
That's right. Yeah. That started this year in January after leaving in end of last year.
Amazing, amazing. Now, jokes aside, we've done the jokes, which always have to have jokes and banter on my ambition. Let's get serious. So, like I mentioned, I know it's your birthday week. I did see your post. Got to start there. I know you mentioned the little girl that had no idea what was coming, the degree,
Mm.
the 15 sounds like a lot, professional exams, the 15 years in corporate, the wife, the mother, the coach, the book that you're writing. You said that she simply hadn't lived enough life yet to know she would one day have something she needed to say. I want to start there because I think that is the story, isn't it? Like, who was that little girl? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, my childhood has got some wonderful memories. Like, I'm an only child, so some people say I'm not the spoilt type, and I probably wasn't, and that was quite nice actually because I had some really values instilled in me from my mum and dad right from the very beginning. And I guess that post came from a bit of reflection on, everything I've achieved actually, because sometimes we don't take the time to write that down. That little girl didn't know what was coming. And now when I look back, on my birthday, I was like, wow, I've actually come so far. And it's something that I see a lot of women don't do is actually talk about, what they have done and why it's important to share, what has changed in your identity. There I was a young child open to anything, and that's narrowed down over the years as I've, done my corporate lifestyle and I've, had a bit of an identity check at that point to say, well, what do I want next? And that's what's led me to, start my own business. So yeah, that little girl definitely had a lot of innocence and not enough lived experience, obviously, at that time. And now I feel like I've been through that journey, still learning, still improving every day, still, finding my feet in various guises. Like the business, for example, is completely new. Um, but I think I've learned a lot from the skills I've attained over that period. So that was kind of a little bit of a reflection on what's happened, but also an acknowledgement of how far I've come. And obviously, like you said, my next venture is to write this book that I've started. So I'm an aspiring author, and hopefully, one day will be a published author.
Amen to that. Love it. No, I am very quickly. I definitely have a newfound appreciation for birthdays, and I love the fact that you celebrated yours. You said I want to do something like this on my birthday week, and I really think that embracing our birthdays and seeing them as like I don't know a point of reflection or even just something to celebrate is amazing. I
Yeah.
struggle with that a little bit. I remember I used to almost like want to downplay my birthdays, like oh another year. And then I remember my daughter, she's 3, and for every year that it's her birthday, she's like, she can't wait. And I remember
Mm,
thinking, I need to be more like her. Like, life really is a blessing. I know we have obviously ups and downs, and sometimes we feel like we're getting older and where am I going and meaning and purpose. But I just generally think, yeah, birthdays are something to celebrate and really be grateful
mm.
for. And I'm glad that we're doing this as something that you might remember as well on your next birthday. Say, oh, I did that on my last
Mm.
birthday.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think children are a really good example. So I've also got a 3-year-old who's just turned
oh,
3. So a similar thing, they have that innocence about them, which we actually can, I probably learn from her every day, in terms of things that I could do better for myself. And one of them is just, it's black and white for them. It's what they see in front of them. And we have this tendency of we see what is in front of them, we sort of know it, but then we look at the past and all the mistakes, and then we try and strive forward to bigger goals, and we forget the present of, oh, hang on, where am I? What was I building? And I built it. Oh, actually, I'm in the moment. And I feel like that sometimes gets missed a lot. And when you're overwhelmed and you've got so much going on, it's so important to take that pause, I think, to really, focus in on where you've come, how far you've come.
I don't know that the signs in the past or the experiences in your past now it sort of got you to where you are because everything we talk about pivoting, but I generally think it's building blocks as well. Like there's a sign,
Mm,
there's feedback that people give you, there are things you can't ignore, and I think it's everything that kind of leads you to where you are today.
mm,
Um,
mm,
what life in corporate, what must have looks like from the inside. The moment you see the pattern in yourself, the moment you start leaving to build something of your own. I'd love
mm,
to hear about because I think a lot of women, especially like motherhood, they start to think about like transitions and pivoting. So I think that
mm.
journey is what's interesting to hear more from that. I don't want to say what was the moment you knew you wanted to leave or build something different, but can you talk us through like the series of moments, perhaps, or like just
Mm,
experiences and you think, something needs to change, or there's something pulling me.
mm. I think it was very much the latter. There was a pull. I sort of, I think now when I look back, my 10 years at the Big Four, the coach and the mentor in me was actually always there. And it was small moments that where I was growing other people, growing myself, that has built up that experience. And it was that pull towards the final couple of years of corporate where, you know, after my second daughter, many mothers would just be kind of working out how to juggle 2 children, different settings, a corporate life. And there's me going off and doing a diploma in transformative coaching. So I definitely have that ambition in me. I knew there was a pull, but I kind of had to explore it at a pace that was right for me. So I dropped to part time, and I kept my corporate career going whilst I explored that pivot. And I think that's really important to talk about because I think a lot of the time we get that feeling that we want to pivot and we want to do something different and it's scary, but actually trying to do it alongside what you're currently doing to really get a feel for what it might feel like. It won't give you the full picture because you're not in it fully, but it would definitely give you a good sense of is it something that's I'm ambitious for, like I really want to do. And I think that's where I was, because every time after I did my diploma I was supporting my teams and leading engagements. I was constantly coaching and mentoring them. I was doing the thing. And that was how I used to, my teams would deliver for me by me supporting them in that capacity. And I was a leader and I was trying to, I talk a lot about sort of boundary led leadership of how do you become a leader that's empathetic, that can still deliver, but really look after their people and listen. And that was who I was becoming. And I liked it. And I thought, I really want to give other people the chance to know that there is a way and to learn a different way that's sustainable.
But I also love what you said there about like doing it part time. I don't know, like doing
Mm,
it on the side because I think we everyone entrepreneurship is always sold as this like the dream, and I'm
mm,
funny enough, I'm in two camps to it. I just think a lot of it's circumstantial too. You know, do you have sometimes for people they have a partner that can support them financially whilst they
Mm,
transition. So you can't just watch a video and think I'm going to start a
mm,
business. Sometimes you do have to think about like your situation, and a lot
yeah.
of people don't talk about the situation enough, so they don't give people like the reality. So I just love the fact that you're giving us something very pragmatic there about like trying it out. And because again, even
Mm,
having sometimes doing something as a business puts you off. Like, do you know how many people have told me I actually considered being like a fitness instructor? I'm like, we end up hating exercise. So I do love fitness. I like going to the gym is one of
mm,
my favorite things. But what if I do as a business and I hate it because I've got to get clients, I've got to, like it's just so much more,
mm,
isn't it? Dealing with people
yeah.
maybe who don't want to exercise might make me look at it differently. So yeah, I love that sort of, I don't know, that balanced kind of take
Mm.
on it.
And you make a really good point about the support that you have. And I was extremely lucky that
Like,
my husband was able to support us financially whilst I transitioned. And also he was the one that asked the question, you're in two camps here. Which camp is pulling you more? Because you probably have to make a decision of which camp you want to be in now that you've tried both. So yeah, that one question, and that's sometimes all it takes is one person, whether that's coach, a mentor, or your partner, or your family member, friend, to ask you a really important question that really stops you in your tracks and makes you think about where you are in life and where you actually want to go. And that's, I'm always grateful for that question that he asked me so honestly and so kind of simply. But which camp is it? Where would you? Because if you want to go in your corporate career, then we need to adjust how we make that work. How you get more senior if that's what you want to do. If you want to do this, it's a different aspect. Like you say, entrepreneurship is not just delivering for the client, it's getting the clients, it's doing all the things around, work and life and children and, everything. So yeah, it was very intentional, I guess is where I'm getting to. But I took the time that I needed to get there.
okay, sounds good. And what about the book then? Tell us a bit about that.
Sorry, say that again, Tiffany.
I was just saying, tell us a bit about your book.
Yeah, so the book is in its very early stages. I'm hoping to finish my first draft before the summer holidays. So I've self-imposed deadline of the
Oh,
children being off and me having a manuscript that can start getting into, the publisher's hands and start getting edited. But really what I wanted to focus in on was this concept around the sort of silent expansion of responsibility, because I think capability, which is, the women that I work with are high achieving, they're, whether they're in corporate or business, and that capability attracts responsibility. And it's that I want to kind of explore. And how does that silently kind of expand? And that being the reason for this sort of overwhelm. And how do we, what's the solution for some of that? Not I need more time or I need a productivity hack, but really what is it within you just below the surface that you really have to explore to work out how you can make it sustainable, because that responsibility will always expand. Pressure will always be in your life in some form. So how do you create a different possibility for yourself if you know that actually the environment I'm in is either high pressure or I've got multiple children and there's lots of calls on my capability and it's absolutely the role I want to play, but how do I play it in a way that I'm not, putting myself at the end of the list to do every day?
so just to make sure I understand that when you say capability, is it like obviously this person, or is it women? Is it for women, by the way? I don't want to.
Yes. Yeah, high achieving women. Yeah, yeah.
Because it's just make sure that I'm understanding. So it's like the more capable you are, the more probably in demand you will be, or more
Mm,
stressed you'll be at work, asked to do projects, asked to manage because you're clearly capable of doing something. Is that what you meant? So now knowing how to
mm.
not confine that, but to manage it so that your capability is not maybe abused even or like overstretched in the wrong
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And I think a natural tendency is, well, I just have to do more. To be
Okay,
successful, I just have to keep doing more. And I
right.
guess I'm challenging that belief slightly that, when I was at my, when I did the work and I spent 2, 3 years doing the work on myself, you know, getting various sources and trying to do it alone. And I, wholly don't recommend that because it takes a long time and it's difficult and you have to really confront yourself and you haven't got somebody to kind of, bounce off what you're thinking. But when I did that work, that's what I found that my boundaries were not there because I felt like doing more was the answer. So I wouldn't even dare to say, no to somebody. But it wasn't that I couldn't say the words no. The script wasn't the problem. The problem was doing it because it came from a belief that I was still valuable and you know, I was still good enough if I said no to something. And if I didn't, do something or I delegated it to somebody else. But so it all came from within. And what I realized was a lot of it was in my control. I just couldn't see it because it was so beneath the surface that I couldn't see it for myself. So it does take a lot of confronting conversations and a lot of, powerful questions to be asked. But having gone to the other side, my life became, doing a 3-day week role as a director in a big four is really difficult. Most people wouldn't do it. And that was the evidence that I sort of proved to myself that there is a way to be in these high pressured roles, to be a high achiever, to be a working mum, to not have family support around you and still, get to the success that you'd like and actually enjoy the success. Not just I've got there and I've ticked the box, but actually live
Oh, better stretch my shoulders. I feel like we're just getting to the meat of this conversation, guys.
it.
Yes. No, but I am. Before we even go into it, I remember reading that one of the best definitions of boundaries I saw is where we end and others begin. And I remember thinking,
Mm,
I love that so freaking much. And I actually read a post on LinkedIn today about boundaries. This lady was talking about how, I don't know if you've seen it, it's quite funny, how her saying no to something, she was saying, no, no, thank you. No, I won't have time for that. And she was trying to coach other people now to like do the same, like, oh,
mm,
it's just this people pleasing kind of thing mode that a lot of people are
mm,
in, and
mm,
I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I think as women we're more likely to. I don't know. There's so much there, right? It could be like the social conditioning of like being a good little girl, and girls are
mm,
just I don't know, it's nice and not mean, or I just think there's so much more, especially for women. So I think a lot of people
mm,
listening now are probably going to be like, yes, tell us more. So I'm like, okay,
mm,
where do we start with this, right? Because I feel like we could go everywhere with this, but I love the fact that your content is not just about telling people what to do. It's like that surface.
mm,
Once you know your triggers, once you know why you're saying, is it for me? Growing up in Nigeria, as a woman, as a girl, in Nigeria, girls are there's that kind of social conditioning of girls are more.
mm,
You should be nice. Hopefully, be a nice, good wife one day,
mm,
and be more quiet than loud, dress a certain way, carry yourself a certain way. And I think that all bleeds then into like the woman you become and how difficult it
mm.
is to maybe say no or challenge people. And I cannot even tell you the amount of times I lie down in bed and I cannot sleep because I wish I said something to that person 20 years ago.
Mm. Yes, exactly that. And I think we do have more control over what we carry
Okay.
in from, from that conditioning that you mentioned. But we
Mm.
never pause to actually challenge ourselves to say, am I still going to carry this or am I going to let it go? And I think that for me, the whole sort of room to breathe sort of company name came from that fact when I was in the lowest point. What was it that I was sort of saying to myself when I was thinking about a name? I was like, what do I call this business? Like, I know what it is, but how do I get that message out there? And I remember that time I went back there in my mind and said, well, what is it? What was it that I really needed? And it was room to breathe because I felt like I was carrying absolutely everything, myself, my family, my work life, everything. And it wasn't about just, oh, I'll stop doing this and I'll start doing this, or I'll do more of that. There was something bubbling away that I actually just needed to to breathe rather than, just do it for a month, hope I feel better, and then bounce back to my old beliefs. So it's a belief system that runs us really, truly, like within. And it's tapping into that, I think, has so much potential for people who, are willing to go to that conversation.
I feel like this is a good point to tell everyone to pause and take a deep breath.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
No, but seriously, I'm like you can never underestimate the power of a good breath. And my
Yeah.
children, they it shows that they're listening, but they also mock me. I feel like they can see my changing, my face changing. Like, mommy, take a
Mm.
deep breath. And it does me a bit naughty. Mommy, why don't you take it? Mommy, count from 10. I'm like, but yeah, I think it's a good place to take it. Just take a deep no, but this is interesting because I think what you said there's like that societal cultural conditioning sits underneath for women, and I suppose why I'm thinking about also why this is a problem for high achieving women because obviously the more competent you are, the more capable you are, or the more you recognize how talented you are, the more that
Mm.
maybe you have more options as well. Because I was thinking about it, sometimes I see myself as a multi-hyphenate. I definitely think I can
Mm.
do lots of different things. I'm quite good at writing, say so myself. Quite good at podcasting. I'm good at sales and people. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think the more you kind of recognize what more you can do, it's like oh my limited, unlimited options. The world is my oyster. We all these quotes.
Yeah.
So it's like so how do you normally look at this? Do you look at it like it's like an iceberg? I think you mentioned before.
Mm.
And then how do you let's say you're coaching someone, obviously don't give us the sauce because then people gotta pay for this. But talk me through like how do you look at like a potential client and can you give us some like framework, just very briefly how you look at
Yeah, yeah. So one of my frameworks is actually the word breathe is
it? Okay.
is is my signature framework, which is part of my sort of 12-week program. And what I won't go through every letter, but the essence of it is we need to first be aware. So there's a lot of work that's done on becoming aware. So aware of what is actually going on right now. And we, sort of split that between home, work, relationships, health. Those are the sort of four pillars really that sort of make, us and how we tick. So we do the awareness piece first, and I spend more time there than anywhere else actually, which is interesting because it means that you really get to the heart of what's going on underneath. Because when somebody's telling me, oh, I was, waiting for my boss to give me some feedback on my presentation, for example, I'm sitting there going, what were you waiting for? Like what was it that you were waiting for? Because you came out thinking you did research. Like, so where is that accelerated acceptance of I've done a good job and I'm going to take back control? Because that person might not say something that, you know, meets your requirements, might cancel your meeting with them, anything can happen. And you're left there wondering whether you did a good job or not. So when are we going to take back control and accelerate our acceptance from within and say, well, what can I do? So that's just one example, but becoming aware of those moments which seem quite like micro moments. And a lot of my clients find that they're micro moments that they tell me, and when we dig deeper and we're more aware of what it actually means, that's when they start to then sort of look at their beliefs and what's driving that. And it's really, I want external validation. I want to be told that I'm good enough because I don't feel good enough. So why don't you feel good enough? What's driving that? That behavior around enoughness, and when do we even define it? We have a feeling, but we don't really sit down and say, well, what would look good to me? What am I going to be happy with? So there's a lot of work on that awareness piece, and it's everyday moments is actually where they crop up the most, and that's the interesting part. And then once you get through that portion, it's really about, well, so what are the boundaries within myself, within my control first that I need to consider? What does it give me? Because you can put all the boundaries in place and you can say that you're going to do these things, but how are you going to make them sustainable? And then it's actually really embodying it, day to day, week to week, actually reflecting back, taking the time at the end of your week to actually look at, okay, so the pressure increased here. I had this really difficult deadline that came up today. How did I respond? How did I react? And how does that align to the work that I'm doing? And that's where you see the most power, because it's almost like an intentional pause, and it's a few seconds, but the reaction is then different. And that's what's really amazing when you see it happening with clients, because you see that they then tell you about a presentation the next week or the 2 months down the line and say, oh, remember we talked about this? I didn't wait. I actually was okay with how I did. And I just wrote down some improvement points, and I actually patted myself on the back and said, you know what? Good job. You stood up there and you spoke. You know, usually I would be terrified of doing that. Like, those small wins compound. And I think we underestimate the compounding effect of those small wins that we give ourselves. So yeah, so that's kind of like how the structure of the program works, and I have a framework that I've designed based off my own lived experience, and then obviously adapted as clients have been through it to enhance it. But it's it's fabulous to see how they start and how they end up, because that awareness is one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it, and
Yeah.
that's the power of it.
No, I love the awareness. I love how your kind of approach sits a lot in that, because I think, I don't know, like I
Mm,
feel like even though we live in such an information age, I think the information is meant to be taken and then used as a form of introspection. I think that's the power of
mm,
information. I don't think information is just for the sake of information. I think information is meant
mm,
to like give us the tools to then apply. And that's how
mm,
something works. If you don't apply it to like your actual life, or then you're just I don't know. It's like porn, isn't it? Information porn, or like I don't know.
mm,
Just yeah, everything can be almost like the pornification of everything now, like content and
mm,
like people's lives. Everything is just so interesting. I think I love that awareness is a big part of it. And was it
mm,
Socrates that said, the unexamined life is not worth living?
mm,
I love that. And I think, especially for mothers, for women, I always say how, even in motherhood, that, it's like everything has to be taken and applied to like your own life and sat with. Otherwise, you're just
mm,
information. Um,
mm,
and I also think another core angle of this is like that boundaries and relationship part, because I think one of the reasons why people in general, and women like are so scared of setting boundaries is because we think they're going to threaten the relationship, but actually
mm,
it will strengthen a relationship. And I think
mm.
it's something we spoke about in the intro as well. I'd love to hear a bit more about that, like how that boundary setting can actually create mutual respect and clarity, as opposed to, if someone's listening, they're thinking, oh my God, if I set boundaries, will actually make people hate me, like, or my boss hate me.
Mm,
What would you say to that, like, in terms of,
mm. Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting one, because I think we've grown up with that perception that if I say something, I'm putting a spanner in the works, and I'm sort of setting my stall, and someone might not like it. But I think that comes from a place of serving that person rather than serving yourself to start with. And I think if you start there, you start with, I'm serving myself and I'm willing to have a conversation about it. Because one of my concepts is boundaries that breathe. And when I say that, I say you don't just set the boundary and go take it or leave it. And that's where I think relationships can crack. The boundaries that you set are a conversation. It's you being so solid within yourself that I know this boundary is going to help me. I know exactly why it's going to help me, and I know why I need to tell you this. And so whenever I've had sort of a boundary I need to set, like with my husband, it's always just been a conversation. It's been, I've identified this need of mine, this is what I need to achieve it, and this is how I need you to help me with it. And that's that boundaries created, and it gives that ability for that person to feed back and go, do you know what? That sounds absolutely fine. Let's do it. Or have we considered an alternative? Because actually, you might have missed something which might make your life even easier. I've certainly done that, where I've sort of said, well, actually, if you take on this and I do this, that this would really help to structure my, gym sessions that I've started now and I really enjoy and I need to create time for. And he's gone, well, hang on, like, why don't I just pick him up from school and then you can do it there? And I'm like, I didn't actually think about that. Yeah, like I'm trying to set my stall, but I'm open to feedback on it. And that creates such a powerful relationship because of that openness. So for me, the boundaries are not rigid. They have that ability to sort of, I guess, breathe into your life so that, you're not ending up in a battlefield of, well, I said I needed this and you didn't do it, or I said no and this person didn't like it. It's almost like, let's have a conversation. Which is why it's sometimes when I read posts about this is what you should say. And I get a little bit, it's a bit of a bugbear of mine actually, because I think the scripts are important, but I think the bit that we miss is the conversation and actually how we have an integrated conversation rather than I'm just going to tell you I'm not doing this anymore.
yeah. No, I get that.
And I think, yeah, go on, sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. I was just going to say maybe, I think sometimes maybe it's just because we live in such an individualistic society that it sort
Mm,
of delivers this sort of messages in a it doesn't deliver in a way that says, okay, are you married? Do you want to stay married? You know, because I'm sorry, but if you want
Mm.
to stay married, it's like a whole different ball game, right? You can't just
Yeah,
be like, oh, you know,
yeah,
it's how you package things, and I think it doesn't mean you're some person, you know, will call over you. It just means that you know that they also have, I don't know, like maybe people can deliver things. Maybe people can be kind and boundary. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what it is, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
And I think that's something I'm always watching for in my children. Like, you know, like
Mm,
even though they're 3 and 5, and it's like, oh, they're playing with something. Oh, did she give it to that person? Like, no, 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 don't give it to that person if you're playing with it. But you can still
mm,
notice that the person wants it. Maybe just wait a little bit and just say, look, I'm playing with it right now. When I'm done, about always, you know, 2 minutes, you can have it. Or we set timers. So that shows that
mm,
you deserve to play with this thing because you got it first. But maybe
mm,
in 2 or 3 minutes, let's, you know, your sibling play with it or your friend play with it. And I think, yeah, it's
mm,
that kind of like idea of you can be boundary but kind. And I think sometimes this kind of popular advice that takes off on the internet is just
mm,
like, it's just viral, isn't it? It's like what will go viral,
mm.
right? Or actually keep your relationship, your friendship, your marriage. Because you could be, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. And I've actually seen, you know, I've heard a lot from people that, like women that I've worked with who've said, we
Yeah.
always read about the boundary stuff and we know what we need to do. So why do we find it so hard to do it? And I
Mm.
said, well, because that's actually the outcome that you're looking at. The outcome of the inner work that you do is the no that you say, or the time you set on something, or, you know, like teaching your children about the sharing. The work actually started way before you got to that outcome. The
Yeah.
work started when you started believing the reason why you're okay to say no.
Yeah.
So that's why you can't read it and then think I could just take that action. It's really difficult to sustain it, and it's really difficult to be consistent because you're not honoring your values in why you need to say no to something. You're just doing the thing. You're doing the end point without doing the work. And for me, what I've realized is doing that work is where the change actually lasts. You know, the clients that do the work, they get the result. And that's why they go into the new roles, they go into the high pressure moments, and they're just a different person off the back of it.
Mm. And I think we've already like slightly touched on, but I think it would be great to like shift that to raising children with boundaries as well, because
Mm,
I think it's very important. I mean, just being able to teach them, like again, like you can be kind, but you know, firm. You can be nice to other people, but you don't have to say sorry all the time. I mean, I see all the time where I see now more now with children where there's been situations. I remember one very vividly. Well, I was with my mother-in-law. We were going, I think, down the stairs with like, our, you know, in TK Maxx with stuff that we're carrying. There was a man coming up. Was he coming behind us? I think he was coming behind us. And I think maybe she was saying like we should all move aside for him. And I was like, but why when we're all going down the stairs anyway? And why should we
mm,
make ourselves small for someone else to go? Do you know what I mean? Like little things like that where you realize why if you're going at the same pace they are and why should you move out of the way, like so sometimes I do think for children it's important to start showing them that it's okay
mm,
to take up space, okay to say no. Like my son has this thing. My son is I can see a tendency for people pleasing in him. He naturally just says sorry a lot. I've often I say
mm,
sorry, but I can see just a really kind boy with, you know, wants everyone to be happy maybe, or he's a nice
mm,
person, and you know, just got to be watch how that kind of then bleeds into like I don't know,
mm.
disappointing yourself so that you can make others okay. So I do think I don't know if you think about that with your children now. You can sort of
Yeah.
that for them.
I think I know there's a lot out there about parenting, and all of it is important. I think the bit that for me that I started to do more of, because I've obviously done more work on myself in adulthood, that I want to obviously help my children whilst they're young, is asking those open questions. Is, you
Okay.
know, what do you feel in this moment? So, you know, when my son has his sister trying to snatch his, you know, whatever he's doing, yeah, we deal with it in the moment, like you say, similar things, timers, let's try and, you know, that the practical element's done, but then having the conversation after and
Yeah.
actually saying, how did that make you feel? Because that's where really the true kind of, well, I felt like I'm always saying yes, or I feel like I can't say no. Okay, so why do you feel like you can't say no? So having those early conversations, I think, not obviously going too deep, they're still really little, but just bringing it into their awareness. And that's for me, if we can get the awareness accelerated to younger years, you know, when people, for example, start in the workplace before they even get to senior levels, imagine. imagine what society would look like if people
Yeah.
knew it earlier. And if you can start with children, it's even better. But what I would say as well is it works the other way. I've found my son in particular, who's now 7, has shown me boundaries better than I've shown him sometimes, which has been amazing. And it's like I said, like once you see it, you don't unsee it. And I now, when I see it, him doing something, can't unsee it. The really interesting example was, we were in a rush in the morning. He was doing his sort of toothbrush, and I was thinking, right, we need to get out the door. Not got much time. I was in that chaotic, I'm sure every listener can resonate with that chaos. And I was like, right, he needs to do his hair, and he needs to do this. I was like, I'll just quickly do your hair whilst you're doing it too. And he just stopped me. He
Wow.
said, Mama, I can't do 2 things at the same time. Boom. And I'm like, of course you can't. Like, this is distracting you from brushing your teeth. And I've literally just told you like 5 minutes ago that make sure you brush your teeth properly. So that's what he was trying to do. And I was like, in that moment, I was just standing. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, why am I rushing? Why am I, making you do 2 things? And I was like, yeah, I'm a chronic multitasker from before. Like, I've changed that and I've had to unlearn being, a single tasker now. But he's got it already. And I think where we can capture those moments as well that they have and learn from them ourselves is such a beautiful relationship, because you're not always giving, you're taking from them as well. And I think that part of motherhood is probably underestimated, because we're so much in the busyness and the chaos. It's hard to see it sometimes. But I think that's a reflection of having done the inner work on myself to be able to see it now, and take from it.
I love that so much. Yeah, I've definitely concluded that they're raising me as much as I'm raising them. Yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
and even what we're saying there. I mean, I've learned to say sorry to my children. Like it was something my parents would never have done. Like trying to say some Nigerian dad to say sorry to you. Ah, I laugh now. Sorry, eh? I'm sorry. You are sorry. You're forever sorry.
Yeah.
But I see, like, I remember there's been multiple times I walk into a room, something's broken. I'm like, who broke that? And I'm ready to, like, yeah. And my kids, like, and then they give me the most reasonable, like, response, like, oh, I accidentally kicked it. And that moment, you have to, like, I've had to, like, apologize for, like,
Mm,
misreading the situation. But I think that's me somehow maybe teaching them boundaries too, that adults can be in the
mm,
wrong too. So, yeah, it's really
mm,
interesting, isn't it? Those moments where you teach them that you can say sorry for, like, I don't know, like sometimes my daughter has this strong principles. I remember I don't know if she was eating a packet of crisps and I took one, and then I said, and then she was crying, and I said, and then she was saying, no, it's because you didn't ask. It's because you didn't ask. And I've been thinking, so it's not just eating of the crisp, it's me not asking her. And I was like, oh,
mm,
I never thought about that before. Like this idea of like you're offended not because really I ate it, because I didn't ask you. And I've had to like say I'm
mm.
sorry I didn't ask, because technically I just so yeah, it's fascinating how they kind of, like you said, they do humble you a bit.
Yeah, they do. They certainly do. I mean, I love your posts when you have the same sort of reflections, particularly about your 3-year-old, about how she's raising you. And it's the same. I think they go back far enough
Yeah.
in their mind, because of the simplicity of their learning. They go back far enough. It's almost like with adults, we sort of have to say, but why? But why? But why? And then we get to the root cause. But with children, they're sort of at the root cause before anything else. That's their starting point. We sort of always start at the end on the outcome, I feel, and then we sort of if we ask ourselves why, we get to the beginning. And I think the art is, how do you get to the beginning a lot quicker?
I love that, and I love the fact that your son was just like, I suppose, reflecting what you've taught him all this years. That must be quite a nice moment as well, because I think with children, it's
Mm,
like you're constantly like putting into them, and I think people say, I don't know,
yeah,
see when they go to uni or something, you finally like when
yeah,
they go to uni, like and so it's nice that even at 7, something's been reflected back to you. That's pretty nice too.
yeah. They do pick up on us, don't they? As much as we might think that they're not watching or they're just off playing, but they really are very good at absorbing energy. And I think energy that you give off when you have boundaries around your time, around your presence, around your energy is what they take. And I think we underestimate how much of it compounds for them that, oh, that's the way of doing something. So we've got such a huge role to play, actually, if we
Yeah.
actually think of it that way, which is why when women come to me around how chaotic life feels, I actually ask them to slow down. Rather than speeding up, I ask them to slow down because slowing down, although might sound counterproductive and might be against
Mhm.
all tactics and hacks that you've heard of, is actually the way to create something sustainable. I feel like, because that's what I had to do. And when I
Wow.
slowed down and really noticed, unnoticed, and that actually sped up my productivity. That sped up how I was with my children. It sped up everything in life.
Mm.
Um,
Slow
so
down. When I've got like, I remember one week my the dad was away and I felt like I brushed teeth all day. I felt like I was just brushing my teeth. That's what I remember. I just remember that week I just brushed teeth a lot. It's so
yeah,
funny, right? And even sometimes my milestones for good is like the teeth is brushed.
yeah,
Um,
they're fed.
they're at school and they're happy. I think that's something like.
Yeah, yeah,
But no, but I love it. And I think also, a couple of things. I think the whole thing of like the slowing down thing, it's like it's almost like the opposite of what you need to do. But yeah, it's
mm,
really weird, isn't it? I think because society is so designed around speed and movement and success, and but actually
mm,
sometimes you slow down to speed up in life in a weird way.
yeah, yeah,
And also what you said, I think, is I did that because we're so ambitious, we feel like we need to move quickly. But sometimes I've often had to think about my ambitions for my children and how big that is. Because what my challenge was during the half term was that I
mm,
felt like because they were off school and I had to, obviously spend more time with them than work. I feel like I haven't
mm,
achieved anything until I get to work. But I'm like, you just
mm,
looked after children and given an amazing experience of going to the museum and hours. It's just like, why am I not counting that as success? Because society
mm,
undermines what we do with the kids, even though you're raising children, which is like, what is more important than that?
mm.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah, I had a similar thing. So half term, I'd planned out of the business for a week, to say, right, this is time with my eldest actually, because nursery was still on, so I could spend some time with him, and we could do things for him that we can't do when
Mm,
my youngest is around. And I remember saying to myself at the beginning of the week, because I've sort of been where you are and learned that actually I won't feel productive at the end otherwise if I don't do this bit in the beginning. And the beginning was always, what's my intention for the week? My intention is to look after him and to have some quality connection. And actually that's a win. That's an output. The connection's an output just as much as anything else. And I sort of set that up at the start, but it was intentional because I slowed down before the event to make that intention. And I think that's the bit that if we don't do it, we end up at the end feeling that guilt. And that guilt again is another compounding thing. When you then put more things on top of it, that guilt can really, get to a level where it's unsustainable, like you just can't do anymore and you feel terrible with how life is going. But then I also think half term's a really good example of people that I work with where I say to them, like, let's zoom out a second. Because when you zoom out on your whole year, this is 1 week in 52 weeks, right? So when you zoom out, you're in a season, say every six weeks with school, you've got a season, they're in school, then you've got some break, then they're in school again. So we need to be a bit more intentional maybe about how we set ourselves up for those seasons rather than setting ourselves up for just a week or a day. Like what's our season looking like? So I talk a lot about seasons in my work as well because I feel like it gives that bigger picture thinking as well.
I like that. I like that because then you can know, okay, this season is for this bigger thing rather than day to day work.
Mm.
On a day to day, it's like, yeah, so
Yeah.
but
It's
things
like
like,
when your husband was away, right? In
mhm,
that week or that day, it would have felt like you're doing everything, like
yeah,
A to Z, like from morning till night, and it's exhausting.
brushing
But
the
then
teeth.
when you zoom out, yeah, when you zoom out and you've, I don't know, had some trip with
Mhm.
work or something and he's done it, actually it's not so bad. But
Wow.
it's that zooming out that takes courage and to really be honest with yourself is am I really doing everything all the time? Because it's so easy and it rolls
That
off
week,
our tongue
I'm
so
doing
quickly that
everything you do.
yeah, yeah.
This is it. Like I love that. So it's almost like I've heard of this in books like framing. It's like like when you it's another word I can't remember. It's like people always say like if you decide something before the thing, because
Mm,
you decide in your head, it plays out because it's in your head
mm,
already. I remember we spoke to Laura Jenkins. She's a partner at Stewart's law firm, I think a few weeks ago. And she was saying how, obviously, law firm intense, but also
mm,
they don't use their nanny as much. And those evenings where it is hard and she's got work, but she's like, no, no, we're not using nannies because I want to spend more time with the children. She said because she's got a frame, it helps her a lot because she's like, no, no, this is just like
mm,
life chosen to spend more time with the kids whilst we still can,
mm.
whilst they're still a bit young. And because she's got that frame, it kind of makes it easier for her when her
Yeah.
mind obviously wants to go elsewhere and say, oh, you should do more work. Or so yeah, I do think there's a
Mm,
power of like deciding before the time. Like I've decided my children on my deathbed, my children will not say, oh, my mommy was a great cook, and I have accepted that.
mm.
I really have because I think there's so much pressure where I'm like, oh, can you cook really well? Oh, mom, like when I go to
Yeah.
people's funerals, and then I went to a couple of funerals, old women, like late 80s, and a lot of the conversation was like, back then was like, oh, they used to cook really lovely meals. And I thought, my children are never gonna say this about me. They'll
But
be like,
it's a really good point, right? Like I know it might sound a bit somber sometimes, but sometimes I ask myself,
yeah,
what do I
yeah.
want my children to say when I have
Mm.
gone? Like, what do I want them to say about me? Like, I really want them to say what, the role modeling behavior that I'm striving for. Like, I really want them to reflect on that and say it was a good thing. Or, we saw how she left corporate and she decided to run her own business to help other people. We remember that and they've learned something from it. It's the same thing as I started playing cricket again.
Okay.
Again, that's been all boundary work about how we do that. And my husband's been really supportive of like, well, when's training, when's matches, etc. But for me, it's more than just the cricket. It's about showing, in particular, my daughter that we can play sport as well. We can find the time. We can create the space because it's not about how we manage it all. It's about being intentional on our choices. And if we're intentional, then that is something that's important. Similar to your gym work, that's important. So you're intentional about the time that you take to do it. So that's the sort of legacy I want to try and leave for them, but it's a really powerful question to ask yourself. What do I want them to say?
Yeah.
You're not going to be here. You're not going to know, but it's such a powerful thing to think about it in the present moment.
Yeah, no, my thing is, mommy really loved us. Yeah, that's my thing. Like,
Mm,
I want to be like, oh, the love our mum had for us was just, oh, it could actually make me cry when I think about it.
yeah.
But just because when
Mm,
I was growing up, my mum wasn't there, and I know that I missed having that person that just saw you and, I really saw you,
mm,
told you about you and loved you, and you make mistakes so they can come back, and things like when they do
mm,
something, oh mom, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's okay. Even I sometimes I want to see, I show them my mistakes. So the other day I remember my daughter like
mm,
accidentally dropped like a bowl of like crackers on the floor, and I was like, oh, before I see their face change and get upset, I said, look, I drop things all the time. And so I always show them when I make mistakes. Actually, I always say, oh, look what I've
yeah.
done, because I want them to
Mm,
like just be gentle to themselves, that internal narrative. But I want them to know they were loved. I want them to know they can make mistakes and they can come home. Or, I want them to know
mm,
that people are not perfect, but if you love yourself and you love other people, like you could all figure it out. So yeah, I do think it's important, and I love what you said about that sort of almost like a deathbed mentality. But look at the end from the beginning, because on a day to day, the
mm,
moments, the seconds, everyone's tired, everyone's had enough,
mm,
wanting to break. But yeah, when you look at the bigger
mm,
picture, you realize that you can kind of do it in seasons and it fits
mm,
eventually. All right.
mm,
Um, there was something I was going to ask you about that gym. Oh yeah, the gym side of it. Yeah, I think that's important because that kind of shows like going into like prioritizing your well-being as well, which is like it's necessary because what is it? It's
mm.
put on your gas mask before your partners, even though it feels as if you're leaving your kids to go to the gym. Tell us more
Mm.
about that.
Yeah, so I started on my fitness journey in November time. So I have a fitness coach that is helping me, and it was all from the premise of I don't want to create a business that replicates a really high pressured role in corporate because I've done that and I've been in some high pressured environments, and I've, worked long hours as well. And I want to create a business that serves, and I want to create a business that fits around our lives. And one of them was self-care and being the best version of me. And actually what I've realized since November is me taking that journey has improved everything else. It's meant that I've been so clinical about I want to write the book. I've had the energy to do the writing. I've, shown up for clients differently. My whole persona has changed because my nutrition and my gym, training, everything very unknown in certain places. Like I've learned a lot. I'm still learning. I never strength trained before, I'll be completely honest. So that was all new to me, but I've started at home and then we built up to the gym. And I think I proved to myself it was almost like it was something I wanted to do, but also an experiment, if you like, on the work that I do, is what happens when we prioritize ourselves intentionally. Not just go to a spa day once in a while or have a day off once in a while, but really consistently every day pour something into our own cup. Like what actually is the outcome? And that's, even though I'm not at the end of the journey, just in it, honestly, the level of energy that I have to sustain the life that I want to build is now forming. So I think it's something that every mother in particular who is whatever capacity they're in, whether they're in corporate, in business, at home, even as a stay-at-home mum, anyone, I think it's really important to ask yourself that question. How am I going to fill my cup consistently every day?
But I also think, even for me, I mean, because obviously I'm a mom and I sometimes feel like I need to justify everything I do, right? For myself.
Mm,
Why do I need to?
mm,
Really? What's the ROI? I,
mm,
I think always myself like, my children are 3 and 5 now. I'm no
mm.
longer just like a cuddly, snapped
Yeah.
in type of person. It's now like they fight all the time. They
Mm.
always like question things about themselves all the time. They tell me about, oh, I did this person, you want to play with me too. I'm almost feel like an emotional coach for them.
Yeah.
And it's
See,
like,
we are coaches. I do believe we're coaches in house.
yeah, because we're building for them a framework of how they can look at life and look. I mean, the other day, my daughter, it's really fascinating. Maybe I just find it fascinating because I'm a weird, intense person. I don't know. So I always said I don't write in things because when she was a baby, she had this thing. She would rip every book. Oh, gosh, she loved it. And then the other day, she wrote in a brother's book, one of her brother's book, and she knew not to do it, but I think maybe she had a moment of like madness, right? And then she bought the books and
Yeah.
she was sobbing. Oh, I've written a book, and I remember like it was a mistake for me. And I remember that moment I had to almost, I had to like almost like cuddle her and say, oh, it's okay. Was it an accident? Of course, she says it's not an accident. I don't believe
Yeah.
it. But whatever. One thing about me, if people tell me it's an accident, then we're going to treat it as an accident. Even if we know there must be a
Yeah.
moment of
Yeah.
madness. But yeah, and I think I realize that if I'm not okay myself, those petty things will like get on my nerves. You're more on edge when they fight. I'm like, why are you fighting? Just don't fight. And it's like a lot of times I'm almost sitting with them and like teaching them how to like have a framework for their emotions. Like, okay, you made a
Mm,
mistake. It's okay. Like, okay, coming from 10. And yeah, I do think, and that pulls over for me. If I'm feeling good and capable and gentle, I can give
mm,
that thing. But if I'm not okay myself, I'll probably snap or think, why are you annoyed at
mm,
that? Why are you frustrated when that doesn't even make sense? That sort of thing. And even when they're
mm,
frustrated, I can play it out sometimes and make like characters. But I think that a lot of that just pours out from what I've given myself, like going to the gym, looking after myself.
mm,
Even though it seems like as if it's taking something from them in that moment, I feel like what they get back in return is just out of this world. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I had it at the very beginning as well. When I first started, I started doing the home-based weights in the
Okay.
evening. And that was really eye-opening. And my coach sort of said, we're going to fit this around your life. So let's just start where we can and then we'll build from there. And I noticed it myself. I said, this is not the right time for me. I'm depleted. I don't have any energy left, and I'm not giving my best to what I'm trying to do. I'm literally ticking a box. And that's the difference with it's actually filling your cup and filling your energy because now it's in the morning, after the children have all dropped to their various
Hmm.
places. That's
Hmm.
then my time to then fill my cup. But I think that's what we fall into that trap of, well, we'll do everything and then we'll do something for ourselves. But what we
Yeah.
don't realize, if we shift that to higher up the priority order, everything else benefits from it. It's a ripple effect. It's like one domino hits, that energy domino hits everyone. Every domino after gets the benefit of it.
This is true. And I'm certainly feeling very smug today, guys. By the way, I'm not drinking coffee.
What
I
is
like
it?
coffee. Yeah, I know. I feel so smug when I make. It's like a smoothie that I make. It makes me feel so
Oh,
smug.
nice.
Like self care hashtag self care hashtag smoothie.
Yeah,
Basically,
nice, nice.
yeah, it's like I put protein powder, frozen blueberries, frozen bananas. I put like a little bit of peanut butter. I'm like,
Oh,
and I'm not drinking
yeah,
coffee.
go you.
Go me. Oh, anyway, we are
But
feeling sometimes.
nutrition's a really good area as well. I think
Mm,
every mother probably has felt it at some point in their life, right? That
yeah. Oh, yeah.
they'll eat whatever's left, or
Yes.
and I was obviously I was in that camp as well. It's like my dinner would be the last one that I'd even think about
Yes.
because everyone else needed to be
Yes.
served.
Yeah.
And as much as that is good that our children and our family are being well fed, I think there's a huge cost to our own self and how we then show up the next day and the next day, and again it compounds. So I do think, thinking of our own nutrition, and if that means prepping it in advance, great, do it, because I found that really helpful. Just knowing what I'm going to be having, and then I can serve everyone else.
Hmm. Wow. No, I love that. I think it's like because sacrificial motherhood is so admired, isn't it? Almost like, oh, I give up everything for my.
Mm,
But in the long term, who does that really serve? There's a lady who come in on our podcast, Sarah Chalmers page. Oh, shout out Sarah if you're listening. You're fabulous. She's amazing, and she was talking about how a mum obviously pretty much like didn't work and raise all her and all siblings, and then when they left home, it almost felt like they was taking a piece of their mum with them.
mm,
I thought, wow, how interesting. Like you almost feel bad for almost leaving home or being your own independence because you feel like your mother's like be switched off almost, And I never
mm,
want my children to feel that. But I know it's a lot more complex than that. I'm not saying it's straightforward or anything, but yeah,
mm,
it's just interesting when you think about it like that. Yeah, so that's fabulous. I think a great place to end this because I know obviously time is of the essence. Everyone's like, Tiffany, we are
mm.
mothers. You're recording our podcast. Like, are you okay? um, but yeah, I love the idea of like protecting your energy and how that
Mm,
sort of, you know, pours into what you're trying to build into the family. And I think a lot of women just naturally feel guilty for wanting more or for wanting to do things outside of their children. But it sounds like it's a
mm.
multiplier, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a huge, I wouldn't say problem, but it's a huge part of the identity, I think. It's, if I don't do enough for everyone else, I'm not worthy enough. And that's where it really boils down to. So working on what enough looks like and what makes you worthy, and then noticing the small moments that we put into our day. Because if you think about all the thoughts that you might have, all the mental tabs that you've got open, think all that invisible load that we all carry as mothers is something we don't even give ourselves credit for. And then we expect other people to probably give us credit for it as well. But we don't actually tell ourselves first that, we're winning because we've done these things. And we've protected our energy because we've deprioritized this, or we've given it to someone else, or, whatever we've done. We don't take the time to really stop and think about it. So I think that guilt is huge. But yeah, I definitely have seen a change in myself and in others that when you do go deep enough, that guilt can be let go of. It's just, it's hard to do, really hard to do, and it takes time. And it's not that you don't ever slip up. I have times where I still feel the guilt, even though I've done lots of work on myself. I still feel the guilt. It's just that I notice it quicker and I react differently to it. So it's not that it just disappears, it's just you learn a different way of living with it, which makes the whole thing more sustainable in what you're trying to achieve.
Oh, I love that. And I think even for me, just to give an idea of my version of that is if I'm at the gym and I'm like, oh, the kids or something, I think, well, number one, they're with someone they love and trust. And number two,
Mm,
you know, at the end of the day, I'm raising them to be independent. And that means
mm,
depending from me, even though, like, in this moment, it doesn't make sense. I know that ultimately I
mm,
want them to be an independent person that can be by themselves. They don't need to be with someone else to feel okay. So I just think sometimes when I look at that sort of longer moment, yeah, it makes sense to me. Like, because
mm,
one of my superpowers has been able to be by myself. Like I can literally, my boredom level by myself must be like a few months. I think it would be a few months
Yeah.
for I miss people. I can entertain myself. I can like, I'm a bit mad as well, so that probably helps. But yeah, I do think we're almost building that muscle of being able to kind of be by themselves, and it's okay to be alone or be. Obviously, I don't leave them alone, but like
Yeah.
not. But I mean, like, yeah, ultimately, a person that's alone is fine by themselves. Obviously, reasonably
Mm.
and not lonely and isolated. Got to put all that in. But yeah, that ability to be on your
Mm.
own, to be okay, to know that you still need other people, but it's okay to be alone. I just think that's will be a good thing for them in the end.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's really important, when you were saying that, what I remembered was a story from a client who was feeling guilty about leaving her son with the dad. And because she goes, to a job and she goes into the office, so she's in the office 3 days. So he does a little bit more of the childcare. But at the weekend, to take some time for herself to go swimming, she felt guilty and we reframed it. Like after exploring it, we reframed it. And my question to her was, what is that other person gaining? Like your daughter and your son and his father. Like what are they gaining? Because what you are actually giving them is the space to connect outside of their usual routine and to build human connection, and that bond will flourish. So if you consider yourself as serving still, then you can let go of the guilt because you're actually doing something for them rather than for yourself. And sometimes that helps, just reframing that it's for somebody else that I'm also contributing. It's not like I'm just taking time out and I'm doing it all for me. It's for everybody. And I
Yeah.
think that then changes the perspective of what's being gained from the action.
Mm. Yeah, because your child's ability to be with other people and build other relationships, such a reflection that
Mm,
you've given them the confidence, you've given them
mm.
the kind of stability to do that, like to go to
Yeah,
nursery.
it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. Yeah.
Wow, I love that so much.
Mm.
Oh, guys, it's been so. This conversation, I know it could go on forever, but we won't. Otherwise,
Yes,
people will.
yeah, we won't. We won't. We
Yeah,
won't.
yeah,
Everyone probably wants to get a cuppa.
I know that was incredible. Thank you so much, Mishali. So tell us a bit more, like just very briefly about your work, where people can find you, and what your ideal client looks like as well.
Yeah, so I'm predominantly on LinkedIn, which is where we met, Tiffany. So yeah, do search me on LinkedIn. My website's meshalichotai.com. So there's a bit of information on there. There's a way to get connected to me and book a call if there's anything that you want to discuss. There's always 30 minutes in my diary for anyone that needs to chat to see if the work would help them. It's not a sales call. Is it the right thing for you? If it is, then I'd love to welcome you into my world. And if it's not, then I will try and get you to somebody that can help you. So that's kind of the way that I run my business. And yeah, if anyone's interested in the program, then high achieving women in corporate or business, trying to protect their time, trying to unlock some time, energy, and presence, and trying to just not feel guilty, like we talked about, Tiffany, and not burn out in the process. So creating this sustainable life, sort of by design, but yeah, expect to do some work to get there, some inner work. But yeah, with a lot of potential, I guess, to create a different life, which is what I've done.
Love it so much. I would sing it, guys, but Rihanna's work, work. Sorry. Was it? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. We better go, Tiffany, because otherwise, like, she might. All right, guys. It's been a pleasure. I think I probably enjoyed this more than you guys do. As you probably know by now, but thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment, come and join us on LinkedIn. I think we're more proactive on LinkedIn. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to listen. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thanks all.